Yo, what is up, everybody? It's just Brett and I today. Jacob kind of had a little emergency. He couldn't make it, so it's Brett. It's just you and I today. Today we're going to be recapping all the craziness that happened on the NBA trade deadline. There was a total of 16 trades. We got buyouts happening. You know, we got Lamarcus Aldridge joining the Nets, sending the NBA Twitter world on fire. But first, before we get into this, support for Overstated NBA show is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over their technology developments to provide you the best tools for your grooming experience. Manscaped is trusted by over 2 million men worldwide. We have an exclusive offer for all of our listeners. Go to manscaped.com. You get 20% off and free shipping with the code OVERSTATED. You really can't beat that. Again, that's manscaped.com. 20% off, free shipping if you use the promo code OVERSTATED. Now that we're on YouTube, Brett, I like to shower beforehand. Obviously, I take it to the gym with me. I use it every single day. Today, though, man, didn't have time to shower. I got two twin daughters at home. They're about 9 months. They are a handful. So, man, I just kind of, still kind of want to smell good. Went in the bathroom this morning, put the deodorant that comes on with it, the spray that you get with it. Felt like $1 million, man. Smelled good. Even I was leaving the house. My wife goes, "Ooh, you smell good." I'm like, "Hey, it's Manscaped, baby." So cannot thank them enough, and they really are the best. So kind of without further ado, Brett, just you and I, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing very well, man. Thank you for asking. Yeah. How about yourself?
Hi, man. I can't complain.
Sounds like you got a little bit of a busy day with the little ones.
A little bit of a busy day. I lost
by the sound of it.
Yep, their Sunday babysitter. My ma is she's in Florida with my grandma, so it's just man, it's just me here. I'm gonna go home, bring the girls back over here, and just hang out so my wife can get a little bit of a break because she's with 24/7. Dude, we're rocking a little Pat McAfee for the brand right here. We're just it's gonna be a good little Sunday, man. I'm excited, dude. We've been talking about doing this one, and I think we should just get right into it. So the NBA trade deadline had a flurry of moves, right? I mean, there were 16 trades, and we talked about it on last week's pod, on the week before that one, kind of what were the Orlando Magic going to do? And I see you're rocking the hat. I mean, they got things started in a big way. I love it. They traded Vooch. Vooch went to Chicago. I don't think we never even talked about Chicago really being even in the market for him. Nothing that we really heard. I really love the deal for Chicago, but I mean, Brett, kind of you're rocking the hat, man. I mean, let's just go get right into it with your Orlando Magic.
It was an exciting day for the Orlando Magic. I mean, that's got to be one of the most active deadline teams ever. I mean, think about it this way: like they traded their 3 best players on the same day to 3 different teams. Like, okay, best active players, I should say, because Jonathan Isaac's my guy, but those have been their 3 best players this season: Vucevic, Gordon, and Fournier. And to deal all 3 of them to 3 different teams, I don't know if that's ever happened at a trade deadline. It's pretty crazy. And I think they've got to be happy with what they got back for those players when you look at the total haul. I mean, you could break it down. I think it's interesting. Like,
they got a lot of picks. They did. They got a lot of picks.
And it's like, maybe the market for those guys, for Vucevic, Fournier, and Gordon, wasn't as high as a lot of people might have thought. And I think that's kind of what we saw, like, based on what they ended up getting. But what they ended up getting was still pretty nice when you look at Wendell Carter Jr. and RJ Hampton. I think Wendell Carter is 21, maybe 22. RJ Hampton is 19, 20, rookie, very high upside. You get Otto Porter as like a salary match in the Vucevic deal.
I don't think he's going to leave either. Like, I know people have been saying he might get bought out. That's a lot of money to why would he want to get bought out? I guess basically is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's probably there at least for this season. And then he expires. He comes off the books. He frees up more money for them. And then, you talk about the picks. They got a couple of picks in the Nuggets deal. Let's see. They got in the Vucevic deal, they got a 2021 first rounder. That's this draft, top 4 protected. That's Chicago's probably, it's not going to be a top 4 pick. So that'll probably convey this year. The Bulls look like a playoff team now with these additions. So that, it could be like a mid first rounder. And then they got a 2023 first round pick, which is also top 4 protected from the Bulls. That could be nice depending on how things go with the Bulls. And then, you get a top 5 protected first rounder from the Nuggets, 2025, couple of second round picks. So it's just, if you look at the whole thing in its totality, it's quite a haul for 3 guys that were never going to be a part of your future.
Yeah, I agree. And, we've talked about the Magic kind of at length here, and they've been stuck in mediocrity for a long time now. And they've kind of had the same front office there. Not a lot has worked, and I think they had to kind of tear this down. And I mean, they still have Jonathan Isaac, your boy. He had the potential kind of pre-ACL injury, and I'm sure he'll bounce back. But I mean, a defensive player of the year candidate. But I do think, it's about time that they kind of tore this down and went into rebuild. I was shocked that Vucevic got traded. I think 2 weeks ago, I even said on this podcast, there's no way he was getting traded. I mean, every single report said that, he was untouchable for Orlando. I really like this move for the Bulls. I think that, Zach LaVine has taken a jump this year. I think, it's amazing. We always joke about it, but when you have, quality coaching, you bring in Billy Donovan, who is a player's coach, so to speak. And the Bulls now have 2 All-Stars. Right now they're the 10th seed, but they have 2 legitimate All-Stars on their team, kind of for the future. They're not where, Milwaukee is. They're not where Philly is. They're not where Brooklyn is. But I mean, I think it's a very, very good step in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so many times we look at these trades as like there has to be a winner and a loser. But I don't think I think a lot of these trades are win-wins. I really do. And I think this is a good example of it, where it sort of helps both teams with what they want to be doing. Like, obviously Chicago wants to be competitive. Now, like, do I think that's the best direction for them right now almost feels like they're in win now mode? I mean, in a perfect world, no, but at the same time, like, you want Zach LaVine to be there in the long term. And to ensure that, I think you need to start winning some games. I think you need to make the playoffs. And I think that's sort of what they were saying by bringing in Vooch. And just to get back to Orlando too, it's like, it feels like they're tearing it down and rebuilding, but like they could be pretty competitive, I think, next season. Obviously, they've got a lot of young guys, but if you look at the guards they have, I really like this roster. You've got Cole Anthony, you've got Markelle Fultz coming back, and now you've got RJ Hampton. Those are 3 very young guards, each with a lot of potential. And at the very least, one of them is going to be a big hit. One of them is going to, turn out really good, and if not more. So you've got those guys, and then you've got Isaac coming back. Chuma Okeke looks really good. Kid out of Auburn, he missed his rookie season with an ACL injury, but he's been playing really well lately. I think he's set career highs in 2 or 3 straight games. Mo Bamba, it remains to be seen what he's going to be, but he's certainly going to have an opportunity now. I mean, all the free Mo Bamba people, he's got a shot here to show what he can do. I know COVID he got a bad case of it, and it really screwed up his endurance. I don't think he's back all the way from that yet. So that might take some time, but I like the direction they're headed. I like what they've done. They got off Al-Farouq Amino's contract quietly. He was sent to Chicago as well. And again, like I said before, Vucevic, Gordon, Fournier, all very good players, especially Vucevic, but they weren't in Orlando's long-term plans. They just weren't.
No, and it was time for Orlando to make a trade. It really was. And I know, like, the fans of Orlando, like, it's been like this for a while. Ever since Dwight left, they've kind of been stuck in mediocrity. 8 seed, 7 seed, 10 seed. Whatever. And I know, like, they're probably sitting there going, oh, here we go, another potential, these guys could potentially be good. I feel like, Magic fans are scared of that word potential because they've heard it for so long. But I do think this was the right thing. I mean, you clearly weren't getting higher than the 8th or 7th seed with that current group that you had, and to ship them out And, I live in Milwaukee, so I know a ton of Bulls fans, and I know that they are ecstatic by this. I think it would have been an even bigger home run if they would have somehow got Lonzo. I know there was that rumor, marking in for Lonzo or doing something like that, but I mean, I don't think Chicago's entirely all in, but I think you have to do something, right? For that franchise, all those fans, they gave up on Jimmy Butler when Jimmy Butler was 27, 28 years old. They just decided to, trade away their franchise player. So I think this is a good reset for this Chicago Bulls, new front office, new regime, new coaching staff. I really like it. But let's go to, another Orlando Magic player, Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon goes from Orlando, goes to Denver. We kind of talked about Aaron Gordon in Denver a little bit. I know the big rumor was, him go Boston, maybe potentially being interested in him. But Aaron Gordon goes to Denver. So for Gary Harris, who was fantastic on defense for them, they don't win that series in the divisional round, in the semifinals without Gary Harris's defense. So, Brett, what do you think of the Denver Nuggets today compared to what they were a week ago?
I think they went from pretender to contender. Sorry about the overused sort of cliche, not clever saying, but I think that's a good way to describe it. I mean, I don't think they were a contender before the trade deadline. I think Aaron Gordon makes them one. It's weird to say that Aaron Gordon could have that big of an effect, but I just think he fills a major hole for that team. And you know what he is for them? He's a LeBron stopper. He's a Kawhi stopper, right? Those are the teams that Denver is going to have to get through, namely the two LA teams. And they didn't have a guy that could guard LeBron or Kawhi. Jeremy Grant was that was the hope last year. And he did an admirable job for sure in the playoffs. But I don't think he has the strength to guard somebody like LeBron or Kawhi, two of the strongest perimeter players in NBA history. Aaron Gordon I think he's just as good of a defensive player as Jeremy Grant, but he's also stronger. I think if you're basing it on just defensive ability, physical tools, athleticism, you couldn't do much better than Aaron Gordon when you're trying to match up with guys like Kawhi and LeBron. So that makes those winnable series, I think, for Denver. And it remains to be seen what kind of a job he can do on them. But I don't think we've seen his true defensive potential reached, because he's been in Orlando all these years and sort of asked to be the guy at times,
he's not
like the number one guy, number two guy, I guess, behind Vooch. No, he's not. And in Denver, he's going to be more of like a number 4 option, maybe, behind
for him. Perfect for him.
Right. And it will enable him to conserve more energy for defense and put more focus on his defense. That's going to be his role. I'm really excited about it. He's only 25. So, he's still got, I think, untapped upside for sure. And I think in this new role, he can really discover who he is as an NBA player. Because the thing in Orlando, that wasn't him, man. He's just not that guy. And some guys aren't meant to be superstars, number one options, but you could be a star in your role. And I think that's what he's going to be in Denver. I'm super excited. I think it's the most impactful move of the deadline, without a doubt. And another move, I think I'll throw this in here too, that could be pretty impactful is JaVale McGee.
I was
coming
just
to the Nuggets as well.
I think that's big too. Just another big body to, like you said, you look at the Lakers, we're assuming everyone's going to be healthy here. We're assuming LeBron's going to be healthy. Right. AD is going to be healthy. If they have to play those guys, that's just another body to throw at AD.
He's good. He's good, and he's athletic too. I know he's into his 30s now, but he's still one of the most athletic 7-footers of all time. So, the vertical threat that he brings as a lob catcher, the rim protection he brings, the experience, the championship experience. The guy's won titles with multiple teams, and he's got a tie-in with Denver. He was there in the early 2010s. They made the Western Conference Finals, I believe, when JaVale was on the team. He was great for them back then. That was arguably the best stint of his career, was the couple years he spent in Denver. And now he's back, so he's got some ties to the city. it just makes a lot of sense. And I only bring it up because I feel like that's a move that has not been discussed very much, but I think could end up being really important just as a high quality backup center. And again, just the experience and the sort of winning mentality that he has. And also just he just provides a different dimension that they've never really had from the center spot with Jokic there. So, because even like Hartenstein, who they traded for McGee, like he's not like an above the rim player. He's not a great rim protector. I think McGee's a huge upgrade over him. Is he as good as Mason Plumlee was for them last year? Probably not, but he could be close.
He could be.
Anyway, he fills that hole, the Plumlee hole, and then Aaron Gordon fills the Jeremy Grant hole. And I think Aaron Gordon can actually be better than Jeremy Grant was for them.
I agree. So, should we pivot to your two favorite teams in the NBA, the Boston Celtics and the Portland Trailblazers? Boston makes that move for Evan Fournier. I thought it was a good move. I mean, I kind of love trolling Celtics fans. That's kind of part of my MO. Shout out to Derek Michael. You're still an idiot. Love to have you on the podcast sometime. Maybe, I don't know, probably not. But Boston gets another wing, and they get a wing that can score kind of at the end of games, right? So they're five players that they got at the end of the game are kind of going to be there. They got rid of Daniel Tice. They get Mo Wagner, who literally looks like now he's lost all that weight. I was kind of joking with you. Looks like Brad Stevens' son. So what do you like? Yeah. What do you like about Boston? Was this because there's so much that, right? How do I want to phrase this? There's so big expectations with the Boston Celtics. We heard it when they had that huge trade exception at the beginning of the year. Boston better not screw this up. Boston better not screw this up. I know Boston fans wanted, even in the overstated group, we want Aaron Gordon, or we want this person or this person. They were kind of looking for the big name, but maybe the big name isn't necessarily what they needed. So kind of give me your thoughts on Boston here at this trade deadline.
Yeah, I mean, Fournier is not a big name, and I think a lot of that has to do with just where he's been. He's been in Orlando all these years. He was with Denver early in his career, but he's never really been on a good team. We haven't seen a lot of him in the playoffs. We haven't.
He's been bad in the playoffs.
He's just been kind of quietly.
He the last couple of years, well, I think going to your point now.
Look who they were playing.
Exactly, and look at he's another case of similar to Aaron Gordon, where he's not supposed to be the first, second, or third guy on a team. In Boston, he might be the fifth or sixth guy.
Right, but he's been like the number one perimeter option for Orlando, and it's like that's asking a lot of him. And that's all I've said this before. Like when I watch him play with the Magic, it's like you're just asking too much of him. But he's averaging 20 points a game this season. He's having a career year. So to be able to get a 27 or 28-year-old 20-point per game scorer for 2 second-round picks and nothing else, and look, man, they used the trade exception or part of it. They still have, I think, close to 11 million left that they could use this summer before it expires. So they used part of it, and shit, I mean, that's a pretty good use of it. Like, I mean, okay, let's talk about the guys who moved on deadline day. I think Fournier is one of the 5 best players that moved, right? I mean, Vooch, Gordon. But I mean, I think Fournier is one of the 5 best guys. They landed him for virtually nothing. And I think he really fills a need. Like, think about whose minutes he's going to be taking. I think that's the best way to look at it, is like the guys that have been playing the minutes that he will be playing, whether it's Pritchard or I think, Ogilvy or Javonte Green or I don't know, whoever. Romeo Langford, I guess, when he gets back, would have been his minutes. So, the rookie, Neesmith. So these are the guys. Like, instead of those guys, now it's going to be Evan Fournier. And that's a huge upgrade in my book. I'm assuming he'll come off the bench, could close with them. They could do some interesting things with their lineups.
I think he would close with them. And I was going to say, to add to your point, I think, they get rid of Daniel Tice. The day after he misses that game-winning shot against Milwaukee. But don't you think, though, I mean, everyone's favorite Celtic at the moment, Time Lord Robert Williams, doesn't this open up a huge opportunity for him, as he's going to be the guy now? He's going to take all of those minutes, and he's going to be relied on heavily. And, from everything we've seen from him, like he's a solid, good young player.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest takeaway from the Tice trade, is that they have a lot of faith in the Time Lord. And that should give him a lot more confidence too. I just think it's all going to work together. And it's like, yeah, he's the guy now, man. We've seen how good he is. He's there. He's really breaking out. And they're like, yeah, they weren't playing him over Time Lord, just didn't make sense anymore. And I mean, yeah, anything you get from Mo Wagner or Luke Cornett is just kind of icing on the cake. Like, I don't think anybody's hopes are too high for those guys, but they're interesting players, especially Wagner, considering his age. Is he an upgrade over Tice? No. And then on the other side of that too, I should mention, I like the trade for the Bulls. Like, Tice is great. And especially with, you've got Vooch there now at center. If you want to get a little bit more stout defensively, can you play Tice alongside him at the 4 maybe? I think you probably can. So I think he's really going to help them. But I think the biggest takeaway from the Celtics perspective is just how much they value Time Lord, just how much they believe in him, even where he's at right now. So, I mean, yeah, I'm really happy with what the Celtics did. I think Fournier is going to be really important. I think just that it's almost going to be like addition by subtraction, because you're going to get more Time Lord minutes and maybe a more confident Time Lord as well. And then, I just think when this team is at full strength, okay, when everybody's healthy, all of a sudden we're going to look at them and be like, okay, this team's deeper than we thought. Like when they're all there, when Langford's back, when Kemba's healthy, they're going to look pretty good. And you could have done a lot worse with that trade.
This is your day. I'm not going to rain on your parade. I'll just say the Celtics, they're a 500 team. That's all I'm going to say. But that's
right now.
They're
better than their record shows, though.
Okay.
They're a top 4 team.
Okay.
In the East.
Okay.
They're the 4th best.
You're only as good as your record. Shout out to Bill Parcells. But let's talk about your other favorite team, the Portland Trailblazers. They get Norm Powell, who has been an absolute sniper from 3 this year. I know they had to give up your other boy, Gary Trent Jr., but kind of as a Trailblazers fan, man, I'm going to leave you with the floor. The floor is yours here. How excited are you about what Portland did?
I had mixed feelings about it initially because Gary's a young player. I think he's 22. He's still got a lot of upside. Norm's a little older. Norm's obviously a better offensive player. Gary's probably a little better defensively. Overall, I think Norm is an upgrade. And look, I mean, as of this recording Sunday morning, he's played 1 game. He had 22 points in his Blazers debut. He was shooting the lights out, just looked like he did in Toronto. He's a really good player, man. And it's going to be interesting to see how he fits with Dame and CJ. Like, he's not a bad defensive player by any means. I'd say he's average. Defense definitely isn't his forte, though. And you'd think that's what Portland is kind of looking for at this point. But man, that is going to be a load trying to contain CJ, Dame, and Norm Powell. So, defense just isn't a priority for this team. Maybe having Nurkic back is going to bolster that a little bit. I don't know if they're getting Zach Collins back this season, but that, they're definitely missing him. But they've got guys in like Derek Jones Jr. and Covington that can defend a little bit. But they're going to be an absolute force offensively. And Norm definitely, he's an upgrade. I mean, it's as simple as that. He's an upgrade. Is he a massive upgrade? I don't know. Gary Trent's been playing pretty well, but he's an upgrade. He's a better player than Gary Trent right now. So if the Blazers are trying to win now, which why wouldn't they be? I mean, you've got an MVP caliber player who's into his 30s now. Like, you've only got so much of a window with Dame Lillard. It might only be a couple more years that he can play at this level. CJ's not the youngest guy. If you're going to make this thing work, you got to go for it now. And is Norm Powell, does he make you a championship contender? No, but he makes you better. And we'll see what they look like when Nurk gets back up to speed. I mean, I think they've got something special here. Are they a top 5 team in the league? No, but who knows, man? They could make a little run.
Well, I'm glad that you said that, because this whole Laker thing, I think, has put every team in that Western Conference kind of like, oh shit. Like, the Lakers they're if LeBron is going to miss what we expect him to miss, or what's been early reported, and no AD, like, they're going to tumble a little bit, right? And you have, currently right now you have Denver and Portland, the 2 main players in the West that made major moves. they're at 27 and 18. They're the 5th and 6th seed respectively. Maybe they're seeing that they can take a little bit of a jump here, because I think with no LeBron and no AD, I think that West is kind of a little bit more wide open than it was a month ago. And I think these teams should be going for it. This is what you don't want to waste Damian Lillard's years. You don't want to waste Jokic's years. You should be going all in all the time. And kind of similar to another team that's in Florida that is kind of going all in are the Miami Heat. So the Heat kind of, Victor Oladipo has wanted to go to Miami Heat, I feel like, for the last decade. So he finally gets his wish. He's with Miami, which I think the theme of this trade deadline, Brett, is you're looking at players that were dealt to other teams where they're not going to be the number 1 or the number 2 option. I think that's really important when we kind of look and kind of judge this NBA trade deadline. So Victor Oladipo goes to Miami. Miami did not. We're going to talk about Houston, because I think they're one of the big losers during this entire NBA trade deadline. But Miami didn't have to give up Tyler Hero or Duncan Robinson to get Victor Oladipo. That is just insane to me that they get to keep those guys. They get Oladipo, who is going to be, at best, he's going to be the 3rd best player on that team. And at worst, he's going to be the 6th best player on that team, which is fine. If Hero or Duncan Robinson have it going, obviously the 2 alphas are Jimmy and Bam, and you still have Goran Dragic there. I think this is great for Miami. I mean, they're we're going to go over which team we think are winners and losers in a minute here. But I mean, for what Miami did, I think is phenomenal. And I think Victor he's going to fall right into place there. Like, Jimmy's not going to take any shit. We already know that. I think this is a great move for Miami. So what are your thoughts on Miami, Brett?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the biggest Oladipo fan, but it is a great move for Miami. They got him for virtually nothing. I think he was kind of their plan B, their backup plan to Lowry. It's like, if we can't pull the Lowry thing, then Oladipo's sort of the backup, and it could end up working out even better for them than a Lowry trade would have. I'm assuming the Raptors wanted Hero. And we can talk about that too. I mean, maybe after this, but why Lowry didn't get moved. But as far as the Heat, yeah, man, they are deep. They've got a lot of good players. What's Oladipo's role going to be? I mean, he's not going to be a 20-point a game scorer.
But he can be, though. So I think that's important. Be. Like, if Jimmy doesn't have it tonight, or Bam doesn't have it tonight, you have in the playoffs. That's all that's going to matter, right? I mean, he's going to be. I think he is perfect for them.
Yeah, they've got a lot of guys that can sort of play either guard position. When you look at Hero, Dragic, Kendrick Nunn, even, and now Oladipo, like, they're all kind of combo guards in my eyes. So they've just got a lot of versatility, a lot of fun lineups they can throw out there. I'm curious to see what their rotation looks like with Oladipo in the fold. Does he just step in as their starting 2 guard? Like, does Hero come off the bench? Would it be Dragic and Depot ultimately in the backcourt? We'll see how that all shakes out. But I mean, it makes them a much better team, and they can sort of see what they've got in Oladipo. Like, how much does this guy have left? What can he do for us? What kind of role is he willing to accept? And then, maybe they could look at keeping him there long term, because we all know this is where he wanted to be. He wants to be in Miami, wants to be with the Heat. So maybe he ends up being a long-term guy, but they're not locked into him long-term. It's kind of just like, we got this guy for pretty much spare parts, and now we just sort of, it's like a tryout almost.
I mean, they lose Avery Bradley, Kelly Olynyk, and I think draft swap. That was it for Victor Oladipo. Yeah. Like that.
Come on. That's I don't even like Oladipo.
I
don't think he's been that. I don't think he's been that good this season at all, especially with Houston. But again, not a guy you want as your number 1 or your number 2, probably.
And that's the theme, man. I think that's going to be the theme.
It is.
And I think it's interesting. It is. I think what's even touching on Kyle Lowry. We thought, I thought he was going to go to Miami. You thought he was going to go to Philly. We heard at the trade deadline that the Lakers were kind of a late team that was jumping in there. I just think Kyle Lowry makes a lot of money. He's on a $30 million expiring contract. Trying to get those contract numbers to fit, I do think was an issue for a lot of for Miami and for Philly. I love what Philly did with George Hill. If George Hill is healthy, I mean, I said this in the group, in the Overstated NBA group. I thought Philly getting George Hill, again, if he's healthy, he's been hurt all year. But if you get a healthy George Hill for the playoff run and you're Philly and you already have the best record in the Eastern Conference, and you can slide George Hill in with Embiid and Ben Simmons, I think that makes Philly incredibly dangerous. George Hill, I had a front row seat the last couple of years. He was great for Milwaukee. Last year, we all know Milwaukee struggles in the bubble. You take that out of it, though. George Hill was the best three-point shooter in the NBA last year, percentage-wise, and that was playing with Giannis. Now he's going to be playing with Embiid, who is a better post player than Giannis is. I mean, I think Philly getting George Hill is better than them having to trade more to get Kyle Lowry, because they didn't really have to give up basically anything. They still kept Danny Green. Like they're another team that didn't have to give up spare parts for George Hill.
Yeah. There's a lot of parallels here. One of them would be similar to Miami. Getting Oladipo for pretty much nothing is probably going to end up being better than giving up at least one of your nice young pieces for Lowry. And I think it's very similar with Philly, right? Like you said, man, like getting George Hill for nothing is probably better than selling the farm for Lowry. And I think selling the farm would have been probably Thibault and Maxey.
Yeah.
I think for Miami, it would have been Hero was probably the guy they wanted. Maybe Achua. And then I think with the Lakers, it was Talen Horton-Tucker. So it's like these teams were all kind of unwilling to part with their most prized young players for Kyle Lowry. I think that was sort of Masai's asking price, was he wanted to get a guy like that, like a genuine future building block. And these three main contending teams, contending, for Lowry, I should say, just were unwilling to do that. And they ended up just kind of going to their plan B. With the Sixers, it was Hill. With the Heat, it was Victor Oladipo. And the Lakers probably would have had to move Schroeder to get Lowry. So again, keeping Schroeder, not having to give up Talen Horton-Tucker, could end up. That's the one where Lowry would have been an awesome fit there. I think he would have been an awesome fit on any of these three teams. But
I think so too.
Yeah, I think the asking price was high. And Toronto, man, I guess they're just going to try to make the playoffs and see what happens.
Well, and I think what we also have to understand, like, I think there's this thing, and I am as pro player can get, and I like that these teams are starting to do this. Kyle Lowry is the greatest Raptor player in Toronto history. He's been there. I know from everything that I've read, he was cool with them staying. Like, he was cool with staying there. He wasn't asking for a trade to a contender. He'll probably leave in free agency for all we know and sign with one of these contenders. But as long as he's cool with it, and Toronto, I mean, Masai was just like, and look at, I read somewhere, I can't remember who was saying about it, but you look at that championship team, Kawhi walks away, Gasol walks away, Ibaka walks away. Like, they didn't trade any of those guys, right? So, I mean, like, I think, except, well, obviously, right. Kawhi or Danny Green got traded, but I just think it's cool. I like seeing these organizations do this. They already have one of the best coaches in the NBA in Nick Nurse. I think they're fine. I think Toronto, they have one of the best GMs in all of basketball. They'll be fine. Like, I don't mind. I'm not going to kill Toronto for not trading Lowry.
No. A couple things too. And they're another one of those teams, I think, and kind of like the Celtics, they are better than their record would suggest. They most certainly are, especially with Lowry there. They've had a lot of guys miss time. Lowry missed a good chunk of time. They happened to play pretty well when he was out, but still, OG missed time. They were sort of figuring out the Boucher thing. Like, I think they could be like a really dangerous play-in team, like a play-in team that's like a 5 seed caliber. But anyway, and then as far as having Lowry there, so I talked to some Raptors fans about this, like in our Facebook group, and what ended up happening sort of echoes what they were saying. It's like, we don't want to just give Lowry up for nothing. Like, we'd rather just have him for the rest of the season than just get some junk back for him. Like, we're more than willing to trade him if we get some nice pieces back, but we don't want to just give him away. And I think that it was kind of at the point where if they were going to move him, they would have had to essentially just give him away. We don't know exactly what they could have gotten for him, but obviously it wasn't enough for Masai, and I don't think it would have been enough for Raptors fans. So I think they're kind of all on the same page with this, and Kyle gets to be a Raptor for a little longer. I agree, he's the greatest Raptor of all time. And I don't know, maybe they bring him back. I think it's unlikely. Maybe they sign and trade him next summer.
I was just going to say, you can always sign and trade him.
Yeah.
You know, and you can always get something back. Like, I have no problem with what the Raptors did. I do think not enough is being made about this year. They're thousands of miles away from home. They should be in Toronto. They're playing in Tampa Bay. They're playing in a city that none of those guys, you know, are familiar with. I don't care who you are. Like, you're not sleeping in, you know, your same bed or whatnot. So, you know, I think this is just an unusual set of circumstances for them. But Brett, let's go with, who were your kind of your teams that were the winners and losers at the deadline? I kind of mentioned I'll go first. My big loser was the Houston Rockets. I have no idea, not at all, what the Houston Rockets were thinking. And this goes all the way back to James Harden. When James Harden asked out, I mean, really, so here's a trade. I have it up in front of me. If you look back, now that all this stuff is done, the Houston Rockets traded away James Harden for Avery Bradley, Kelly Olynyk, Dante Exum. How do you say his name? God, I'm going to screw it up again. We just said it right before it came up.
Rodion's Kurucs.
And a couple of late first-round picks and some pick swaps. Like, that is, when you look at that and you look at that, they could have had Jared Allen, they could have had Karis LeVert, and they don't have any of those guys right now. Like, I shout out, I know Christian Wood is going to be even, you know, he had the injury, but he's going to be like, he's the guy there now. So, I mean, he's going to be getting his, but I just think Houston, I have no idea what they were doing, what they were thinking. So they're my first kind of big loser. But Brett, why don't you go positive vibes only here and give us one of your winners?
I think the biggest winner for me has to be Denver, for everything we talked about, just filling those holes with Aaron Gordon and maybe to a lesser extent, but JaVale McGee. But you know, they gave up a decent amount. I mean, they gave up RJ Hampton, they gave up Gary Harris, they gave up a couple of future picks. But look, man, like, again, I think this really makes them a legit contending team. So they would probably be my number one winner. I think they were the team when we did a podcast a couple of weeks ago, where we were talking about like which team is kind of one move away from being a contender, and it was Denver. And they did that. They got the guy that we all thought they should get. And then they also got JaVale McGee, a really, really good backup center. I think arguably the best backup center in the league, honestly, at this point, certainly one of them. So they'd be my number one winner. But shout out to Orlando as kind of my number two winner, or my 1B, just because I think they've positioned themselves really nicely for the future. They've got a nice handful of picks. They got two really promising young prospects in Wendell Carter and RJ Hampton. I just think they're shaping up. Like, you can sort of see the direction they're going and what their team could look like in a couple of years. I think there's a lot to be excited about, and that's what they should be doing. I don't think they're a team that should be trying to win now, even though that's what they've been trying to do, it seems like, for the last few seasons. I know that's kind of Steve Clifford's MO. And, but they're doing the right thing now. They're rebuilding, but it's not like they're not starting from scratch.
Right. I hear you. I think Denver for me is 1B. I still think, just because of the conference that they play in, which is the East. Again, George Hill has to be healthy. I think, to me, what he's going to bring to that team, again, has to be healthy. If he's not healthy, then it doesn't really matter. But I think that he's going to be very, very valuable to them in the playoffs. And I also, they didn't trade anybody, but I think the Brooklyn Nets here are also kind of big winners. I mean, the last couple of days we heard Lamarcus Aldridge to Miami. We even mentioned it on the last podcast, like that's where kind of he rumored to go. And then what was it, Saturday, all of a sudden we get a Woj bomb. I don't know why it wasn't a Chase bomb, but we'll have to talk to Campbell Soup about that. But LaMarcus Aldridge is joining the Nets. I'm not sure exactly what he's going to give them defensively. That team already isn't very good defensively, but I think offensively, especially in the playoffs, again, another guy, Brett. Here's the theme here that doesn't have to be the second, third, or fourth option on a team. He might be the sixth or seventh guy that, those minutes, maybe it's 8 to 12 minutes a game that he's going to be able to give you, I think are going to be, kind of valuable. And from another thing from Brooklyn's perspective, Philly gets George Hill, but George Hill is hurt. Milwaukee gets PJ Tucker. PJ Tucker's already hurt. He's been battling kind of an ankle calf issue. And Boston just gets Evan Fournier. I mean, none of those moves, if you're the Nets, really, really scare you. So I think Brooklyn is another team, that they're kind of a winner here based on what other teams didn't do.
I think Brooklyn has to be the title favorites at this point.
Oh, without a doubt, man. With only, but I told you, I was a little surprised at how you and Jacob kind of shook that off. Kevin Durant's missed a lot of time, and I understand, that it's, you don't want to mess with that lower body. I get that, man, and I think if Kevin Durant is healthy, I think that the Brooklyn Nets not only are the favorites, I think they're just going to win it all. I don't see anybody really beating them. But if he
even the Lakers,
healthy,
I know
Brett, he's missed a lot of games now.
I think he'll be okay, man. Well, but I think that's more speaks to how cautious they're being with him than the severity of the injury. I mean, they're winning. It's like, why would you?
Well, that's because they got the MVP on their
rushing
team.
Him back. He's been great, man. I mean, I don't know that anybody can beat them. Even the Lakers at full strength. I think everyone considers them the favorites, but it's like, I mean, I don't know, man. That Brooklyn team is just absolutely loaded. And even AD and LeBron are going to be coming off injuries essentially in the playoffs. Okay. Like maybe AD will have a month to ramp up. Maybe LeBron will have a couple weeks, but like they're essentially going to be coming off injuries. LeBron's older. I don't see why the Nets aren't everybody's favorite at this point. They're going to score so many points. It's going to be wild. But yeah, I agree, man. That's a good point about the other top teams in the East not really improving. I think Fournier does make Boston better, but it doesn't make them better than Brooklyn.
I think they improved. Like I think all three of those teams improved, but I don't think. Again, I think George Hill's healthy. That puts Philly on. To me, that moves them up a notch because George Hill, like from what I've seen the last 2 years, and I know he's been hurt, I cannot say enough good things. He was phenomenal, both on and off the court. But obviously, we're talking on the court for Milwaukee. Like he was unbelievable. But he's been hurt, and we don't know that is Embiid's also hurt now too. So I mean, but I think Philly at full strength is going to be Brooklyn's biggest test. I'm not sure. I've been liking what I'm seeing from Milwaukee lately, but I still they have to address their backup point guard situation. I know that they've been rumored for Austin Rivers. I don't want Jeff Teague. I know they just worked out Brandon Knight, coincidentally, who they had on their roster for a while, but they need another.
Really?
They need another point guard. And Boston, as good as, I know you love Boston. I'm not trying to, they're a 500 team right now. And they definitely have to, something just seems off with them. They definitely need to kind of turn it on here in the second half. The trade deadline's over. Like, I think it's time to get to work here a little bit. But if I'm Brooklyn, none of those moves really scare me.
Here's what I think. No, but I think Jason Tatum's about to go on a tear. I'm just going to say that right now. Like, I think he's about to average 30 over the next month. I think it took him a long time to shake off COVID. I think he got really sick, I think. And he missed all that time and he just hasn't looked like himself for most of this season, but he's starting to turn it around. And I think he's about to go on a tear and really turn into the player he was kind of supposed to be this season, had there not been those kind of setbacks. I think the Celtics are coming, man. I'd probably say they're the fourth best team in the East right now. I think they're a little better than Miami, but they're in that same little tier right behind the top three. But if they start to come together chemistry-wise a little more, and if Time Lord takes another leap and Fournier is as good as I think he's going to be for them, they might actually enter that top tier of teams. Can I give a shout-out to a couple of under-the-radar moves that I like?
Let's hear
We already talked about George Hill and JaVale McGee. I think those are two moves that have gone under the radar but could really help those teams. Like, I'm glad you're that high on the Hill to Philly thing, because I'm with you on that. He gives them more shooting, he gives them a veteran, he gives them another point guard. It's a great fit. And of course, I already talked about McGee. A couple of the other ones that I liked were Rajon Rondo to the Clippers.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that. I think that's I agree.
It's a quiet move. It hasn't been talked about a whole lot. But I mean, he's perfect for them. I think he's exactly what they've needed.
Playoff Rondo is real.
He's exactly what they've needed, right? I mean, I think we were talking about this like last offseason. Like, if they could, that's where I thought he was going to sign. I'm pretty sure I talked about it on the pod. I really thought he was going to go there, and now he is there. And it makes a ton of sense from a fit standpoint. I like him as their starting point guard. That team has always lacked passing, and he is an all-time great passer who still has a lot left in the tank, as we saw in last season's playoffs. I think he's still that guy. I don't think he's declined. I just think he was in the Atlanta thing never made sense to me for Rondo. So I'm glad he's with the Clippers now. I like that a lot. And then a super under the radar one that I like is Daniel Gafford to the Wizards. I talked about it in the group a little bit yesterday. And then he came out and had like 13 points and 3 blocks in his debut with the team. Very raw, young player, but just a little injection of excitement into a team that needs it. And he's an elite lob threat. I think that's going to be kind of fun with Russell Westbrook. He's not going to make them into a contender or even probably a playoff team, but just a guy that maybe they could keep long-term and could eventually become their starting center.
What do you think, Brett? Let's do the opposite end of that Rondo trade. What do you think about Atlanta getting Lou Williams? I mean, I'm sure every strip club in Atlanta is ecstatic right now, but I mean, they are. I think in their last 10 games, they're 8-2. I want to say. I think that's what I saw the other day. They're kind of coming on. You know, they got Nate McMillan as their head coach, and they kind of seem to be rounding into form a little bit. They did have, I believe, the second worst bench from a points per game standpoint in the NBA. So we all know Lou Will. You know, he's a bucket. You know, 3-time Sixth Man of the Year award. He is a bucket getter. Does not going to help you on the defensive end or probably at the end of games. But what do you think of that for Atlanta?
I mean, he steps in as their sixth man, right? It's the role he's always played. I think he's just going to play a very Lou Will role in Atlanta. It's his home state, at least. I forget where he's from in Georgia, Lithonia or Stone Mountain or something, but he's from the Atlanta area for sure. So it's a nice fit, man. I think he's an upgrade over Rondo, at least in terms of like the fit with that team, what they kind of need. Just another creator. But again, I just think it's going to be a classic Lou Will role. And I think he's going to do well. He's one of those guys, man. He's a bucket wherever he goes. So I don't think it's a really seismic change or upgrade or anything, but I like it. I like that trade for both teams. With a lot of these trades, man, I feel that way, where it's just kind of good for both sides. And I think this is a good example of that. I think the biggest news for Atlanta was just not moving John Collins. I think that's pretty big. Did
you think at all that was weird that we saw? I mean, I was doing my whole karma thing because I thought that was the fan in me. But they were talking about trading Bogdan. They were talking about trading John Collins already, and those were guys that we thought at the beginning of the season or even in the offseason that those guys were going to be there for the long haul. It's just interesting, especially Bogdan. He's been there for a cup of coffee, 3 months, and they're already
he's been injured for most of it, I think.
Yeah, but exactly.
I think he's missed most of the season. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe they don't see him fitting in, to their plans long term. But he's missed most of the season with injury. Like, you got to give him a chance. I know. I'm glad that they sort of stood pat and they're just gonna. I mean, they've been playing great, so it's like, why would you trade John Collins now? Like, I think he came out and had like his best game of the season too after they didn't trade him. So they're loaded, man. Like, they're a very deep team. They've just got a lot of good players. I think I said it before the season started. Like, they have more good players than any other team in the league, right? Like, they've got like 10 above average NBA players on that team. I think they've got more above average NBA players than any other squad. And it's starting to come together. I can't believe it took this long to replace Lloyd Pierce, but I'm glad they did. And
shout out to Nate McMillan, man. You know, he's always
yeah,
been a good, solid coach, man.
solid.
Wherever he's gone, you know, I know he was in Portland for the longest time. Then he goes to Indiana, and now he's in Atlanta. Like
He'll get you to the playoffs.
Yeah.
He'll get you to the playoffs. He's not the most exciting coach, not the most innovative coach. I've never been a fan of his, but this might be the right fit for him. Maybe he's the guy for this job. I mean, he's got a lot of experience. He's always been solid. You know, Nate McMillan teams are never bad. So that speaks to his ability to coach. So maybe with the right pieces, he'll start to look like a really good coach. He certainly has so far with Atlanta.
So Brett, let's end on this last thing. Although there is some breaking news here that I can break, that the Thunder have released Austin Rivers, and it's expected that he's going to sign with the Milwaukee Bucks. So I like that move as a Bucks fan. I think he'll be able the 10 to 12 minutes a game that he's going to play. They need some scoring and some competent, you know, defense, someone that they can put out there. Maybe not the best defender in the world, but someone that
he's pretty good. Yeah, he's a good defender. He helps them, man. He's like I remember you were saying how you like the kind of Oladipo as like a, you know, long shot. If we could get him, it would be great. Austin Rivers is like a super, super poor man's Oladipo. He kind of does that. He can play either guard position. He's feisty. He's a good defender, experienced player. I like that, man, for just a cheap little minimum contract ad.
Yeah, and they have 2 roster spots now too. So I like that. But I wanted to end on this. Andre Drummond. He's been rumored to go all over the place, right? First it was, you know, he was expected to sign with the Brooklyn Nets or the Lakers. Then there was strong mutual interest between him and the Boston Celtics. And then the last report that we have came in last night. You know, Woj reported that there's very, very strong mutual interest from Drummond and the Lakers. Where do you see Andre Drummond going? I know you really wanted him in Boston, or I shouldn't say you were talking about him in Boston a lot. It doesn't sound like Brooklyn's going to happen anymore. Him to the Lakers, I mean, if he's going to the Lakers, I'll just say this. He better hope that AD and LeBron are coming back, because right now that is a ship that is sinking and taking on water at a very rapid pace. So where do you think Andre Drummond is going to land or wind up?
Lakers.
You do?
For sure.
Do you like that fit?
That's what my money would be on. Yeah, I do. So first of all, you make a good point. Like, LeBron and AD are out right now. It does look like a sinking ship. Like, that team pretty much sucks without LeBron and AD. That's not a playoff team without LeBron and AD. If you take LeBron and AD out the whole season and you just run it with Schroeder, Harrell, and the rest of their guys, I don't even think that's a playoff team. But I think a lot of the appeal for them in bringing in Drummond would be that he can win you some games right now. He might be able to keep you above water, or at least treading water, I guess, for the next few weeks. I mean, he hasn't always been known as a winning player, but he's a good player. He's an effective player. He would make them better for sure. And then how does he fit in when LeBron and AD come back? That's kind of interesting. I mean, you know, on paper, he's not an ideal fit with that team. He's not really a pick and roll player. He's not really a post up guy. He's not really like a vertical threat. He's kind of a weird player. He's like a face up big. Like, he likes to face up and take guys off the dribble. I think he was a guard growing up, and he likes to handle the ball. So I don't know how much of that he's going to be able to do next to LeBron and AD. But my question is, like, can they turn him into a pick and roll player? Like, he's never been that, but maybe playing alongside LeBron and AD, it's like, look, man, just set a screen, roll to the rim. You're athletic enough. He can get up above the rim. There's no doubt about that. Maybe they can turn him into sort of a lob catcher, and maybe they can turn him into a rim protector defensively. He's shown flashes of it. Like, early this season with Cleveland, he was one of the better defensive bigs in the league by every metric. That defense was awesome for like the first month of the season. He was a big part of it. Then I think he kind of lost some motivation, and, you know, there obviously were when Jared Allen came in, it became a bigger issue, but I think he's a capable defensive player, and I think he could be more on offense than we've seen, or a different kind of player than we've seen. I just think being like, LeBron has that effect on guys. If LeBron is like, look, man, this is what we need you to do, players are going to do it. Nobody's going to go against LeBron. It never has happened.
Just going to say that, I saw in our group a lot, it's not going to be a good fit for Drummond in LA. Dude, have we not seen the last decade plus of LeBron James?
Look at Bosh. Even look at Bosh. The role he took on next to LeBron.
Dwight Howard was on his way out of the league. JaVale McGee was the laughing stock of the NBA. He was on Shaq and the Fool all the time. I know he went to Golden State, but LeBron James revitalizes careers. That's literally what he does. I will trust until LeBron James is out of the league. I'm trusting on that guy to make the players around him better.
Drummond's a good player too. He's not I don't know, man. I think he's a lot better than a lot of these sort of I don't think he's a reclamation project. I just think he needs to be reshaped a little bit, right? He needs to. There's no reason why he can't be a rim protecting pick and roll big, even though he has never been that in his career. There's no reason he can't be. And he's young too. I think he's still only 27. So I don't know that I'm not saying it's a long-term thing for the Lakers, but I think they can use him in a way that makes them significantly better. They obviously need another big. And you can't really do any better than Andre Drummond in terms of what's available. He is one hell of a buyout guy. He's an all-time great buyout guy if we're just looking at talent. I mean, name a better buyout target than Andre Drummond, in NBA history. A 27-year-old guy who averages 15 and 15.
I agree with you, man. I agree with you. But that's going to do it for us. Hopefully, next week we'll get Jacob back. I think he was a little bit under the weather today. He messaged us as we were talking. So
okay.
What you thought it was what it was. So this was fun, man. Shout out to Manscaped. We appreciate you guys so much. And we continue to use the product. We tell our friends about the product. Again, that's manscaped.com, promo code overstated. You get 20% off, free shipping. I'm telling you guys, it's an absolute great deal. It really is. So, for myself and Brett, Jacob wasn't in. We considered asking Derek Michael to fill in for Jacob. We were about to text him. I thought it was a great idea. Then I came back to my senses and realized that's just stupid. We're not going to do that. So maybe next time. Shout out to everybody that listens. We really appreciate you guys, and peace. We'll see you guys next week.